Let's talk about attraction level 2 for your power launch. I had to put on my best Taylor Welch hairstyle for this. I love that man. He's a phenomenal mentor, and what he's doing over at the Sales Mentor is absolutely awesome. But the good news is, as a power launcher, you don't need that right now. You need to be focusing on your marketing and on this bridge. But I know that this section is very difficult to pull off as far as getting you trained up to master your sales process without going through weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of training. So let me put some perspective on this. This is super important for all of you. I was in sales for 14 years and was a veteran sales representative with a little bit of a lower confidence on that concept because I was also an entrepreneur for most of that. So about 2 years ago, I bought into the Sales Mentor process. I spent $97. Within 30 minutes, I paid $600, and within 5 days, I paid $9,000. Okay. That was to get access to private coaching and work with them. Now, from my perspective, it was an incredible opportunity. It was an incredible return on the investment as well. But if I had taken that same amount of money, that same $9,000, I'm trying to be very careful here because I don't want anybody to think that I'm taking away what they've done for me. They haven't. I love and appreciate the program so much. All right. But if I had taken the same $9,000 and I had gone and invested in tools for my garage, then that would have been an absolute waste of money. That would have been a horrible use of my resources. And I could sit there and I could blame the tools all day long for being at fault. I could say that, man, they really sold me a bunch of really worthless tools because I still don't know how to use these tools and I don't know how to benefit from this. That's what's happening in the online course world. And sometimes it's because the tools are misrepresented or the purpose of the tool is misrepresented. But most of the time, it's because we don't want to take ownership for what we invest in. And we need to. That's part of being a great leader and leveling up. So let's talk about these sales scripts you're working on, these frameworks you're working on, your ability to go from taking somebody from an awareness meeting to building attraction to being able to influence their decision to consider, evaluate, build intent, and want to buy your services. Okay. We can jam pack that into a few meetings and do so in a healthy process. But right now we're going to focus specifically on some of those aspects. So number one, letting people marinate. What does that mean? Letting people marinate means giving them a chance to settle in on the good feelings that you've established. Now, I learned this on my mission when teaching about Christ and God, that if we get to a point of spirituality as missionaries, we were supposed to leave the house as fast as possible in order to let that spirit resonate with them, in order to let ultimately God talk to them about what their experience was like and how things were going. But if we went into buddy mode or we distracted them and started talking about regular life, we wore our welcome out. For one, it ended up teaching people that they're not here to do the work, they're here to play. Also, if we stayed, it distracted, and then by the time we left, they no longer remembered the good things that we had accomplished for them. So it's important to get people to the high of the first experience, which is you're just trying to get the appointment booked, or have a team member who can just get that appointment booked and then get out so that they can resonate on, man, I really like that person. I can't wait to meet them again. I want to make more time for them in my life because they were efficient with my time. That is a really important skill to have, is to know how long to allow people to marinate, but also to give them the chance to do so. Okay. This is a concept that comes from the Sales Mentor. I love it. Forced deals versus forced closes versus forced delays. All right. So when you're dealing with a prospect, you got to figure out, is this person truly pre-qualified or not? Maybe they're pre-qualified, but they have a business partner who needs involved. That's an automatic forced delay. You need to get both of them on the phone and in the equation. But if you try to force the deal right there with somebody who needs to talk to another person who's inevitably a part of the process, you are only going to cause them to go and try to pitch for you, which is not going to turn out in your favor. That's a forced delay scenario where you want to make sure to get both parties involved so you can close deals properly and get all questions answered at once. All right. A forced close scenario. These are the uncomfortable ones for most of you. When it comes to a forced close scenario, you've captured all of the 10 clarities we'll talk about in a little bit. You've overcome every objection that you can. You've made sure that you've covered all your bases in your process. The offer makes sense. They're not moving forward. You got to figure out what is going on. And you got to sit there with them through that uncomfortableness and find out, hey, look, we're at this decision now. Like, you either got to make a decision or you got to move on, right? And You will piss some people off by doing that, by the way. You will fail at this sometimes. You will skip something pivotal in some important close at some point and try to go for a forced close, and it might just make them never want to work with you again. But stop worrying about it. If you're in high demand, those situations don't matter as much. And if they are the right type of mindset, if they are of the right type of heart and it's meant to be, they will be forgiving and give grace in the process. That's another huge aspect of life that you need to recognize applies to your closing deals as well as applies to everything that you do in life, any type of relationship you're going to establish. So that all leads to what Taylor Welch calls relationship equity, which I call allowing people to marinate. Same exact thing. His is prettier. All right. Relationship equity is about building equity with relationships by letting them go, giving them distance, and then coming back to them over time. Oftentimes, if you stay in touch with somebody and you continue to provide value, your equity with that relationship goes up. If you start disappearing and you disregard them and you don't include them on events that are important and that they want to be included on, your relationship equity might start to go down. Okay, it might actually have the adverse effect, but your relationship equity is something that you can establish and build over time. So don't be too worried about those who don't close here and now, especially if you don't know what closing tools you're supposed to be utilizing. All right, so now let's talk about tone. We have two different scripts. We have two different types of conversations. I know everybody wants to have somebody represent them as a receptionist. Well, your receptionist first needs trained really well. So I hope you paid super close attention to the attraction level 1 and got that down so you can work with somebody and becoming your receptionist. But you, as a person, you still have opportunities where you need to be able to be a great receptionist, okay? So let's say that you're at a conference that you're not speaking at, that you were invited to, and it's your first time meeting somebody. It's time to go into receptionist mode. It's time to have a tone of service. Unless you've already been introduced, unless people already know who you are, then I wouldn't stay in your superior posture, if you will. I would make sure to be at that equal posture with the rest of your environment. All right. And so the receptionist tone is a matter of being a little bit more inviting. You're being a little bit more proactive with your service. You're guiding people to the next step. You're trying to keep yourself out of the way and help them move forward. So that applies when you're trying to book an appointment. I'm not trying to sell them right here and right now. And you can escape those scenarios by understanding that you're a hero that's on a mission. You got to get going for your other missions. You can't just stay there and pamper and babysit them all day long, but you don't have to come across as a jerk either. All right. You just need to make sure they understand that, man, there's great power in allowing, in establishing this connection, being friendly enough to, catch them face to face and then saying, I really got to run. I got to take care of this, just like the heroes do in the movies. It's so funny. They pattern that out for us in the movies where, Spider-Man meets somebody or Iron Man meets somebody, or Captain America is the most brilliant example of this when it comes to service. And that, he meets somebody, he does something friendly, and then I got to go, I'm on my way. And he gets moving. That mission and that purpose, that's also what allows him to go from being, or rather what keeps him friendly without making him a true friend of that individual, somebody who gets stuck by that individual. You want that person to be captivated with that moment, and you want them to understand that you have things to accomplish. Otherwise, they're going to expect you to spend so much time with them that is going to get in the way of your ability to serve them and serve others and keep moving forward with the missions that you have in place. Not that you can't pick up a great best friend here and there in the process of your sales, but that should not be the purpose of your prospecting calls. Otherwise, that's going to limit your ability to spend time with your family, to spend time doing the things that you love, to build the relationships that are most important in your life out. You've got to be able to put healthy boundaries on that by being friendly, but not crossing into that friend zone. The 10 clarities come from Eli Wild, who's a partner of the Sales Tour. He's the #1 best sales rep for Tony Robbins, and they named an award after him, according to him and according to Taylor. So I don't know what the award is, but I'm sure it's probably for like best salesperson. He is a very good sales trainer. His 10 clarities, it took me a long time to figure out what they actually were, but I'm going to provide you the checklist on it. I do not have time to train on it. Ultimately, they're things like, did you talk about time? Did you talk about, support? Did you talk about financial concerns? There's 10 areas that you really need to be locked in on when you're in a sales environment. It's great to review those each and every time before you go on a closing call to make sure that you have them. I also like to give sales rep that checklist to use. I even train my sales reps to tell people, hey, by the way, you're in sales too. And I want to make sure that we're not missing any clarity in our call. So do you mind if I just share a concept with you from one of the best sales reps ever? They always say yes. And then it gives you a chance to talk to them about the 10 clarities, explore the clarities with them, and as you explore and teach them the concept, they're getting excited about that. They're like, man, this person's valuable. And you're making sure that you figure out which one you missed. So if you're new in the sales world and you're new to the 10 clarities, it's a phenomenal way to utilize the exercise to make sure that you bridge all the gaps necessary. Because when you bridge those 10 clarities, it's amazing how powerful your close becomes, because there's really nothing left for them. There's no escape doors, as Eli Wald calls it, for them to escape through. They kind of have no opportunity left but to move forward if the answers to the clarities aligns with the offer that you have on the table, which leads us to being able to shut up. I'm doing a video. I'm not going to shut up. I can't do that right here. But in person, when I'm trying to work with somebody, it's so important to know that anytime I ask a question, if I ask a question and I know it's the right question, I need to shut up and I need to be as silent as possible. Does that make sense? Tell me more about that. Dig deep, guys and gals. Make sure that you're moving forward, asking the right questions, giving the right space, helping people be vulnerable. That's good. Go ahead. I've been there before, right? There's little statements you can make, little softeners to help people feel encouraged to share what they need to with you. And then again, you go back to shutting up. When you need to interrupt somebody, hey, let's go ahead and get back on track. Tell me more about this, right? You're still giving them the mic. You're not taking it away from them and saying, stop hogging the mic. You're just guiding them towards the parts that are most effective, most important. Confident offers. That again, I want you to work on your offer and your close pieces of that document first. Once you get your idea of what your close and your offer is, we're going to role play it together, and I'm going to refine it with you, and then you're going to role play it back to me, and vice versa. We're going to make sure that your close and your offer is super on point, because once your close and your offer is super on point, that's what gives you the ability to shut up with confidence. And when you can shut up with confidence, knowing that they're sitting there truthfully evaluating what it is that you offered, you don't have to beg them to move forward. You don't have to ask for the close. You're waiting for them to make that decision. And they're going to ask all sorts of interesting questions right there at the end, perhaps. If they're not fully ready, if you missed any clarities, this is where they will ask things like, so what's the next step? Or how much is this going to cost me? You've already answered that in your offer, by the way. What's the investment? Do I have to make this payment all at once or in payments? The simple and concise answers drive tremendous power. The more you ramble at the point of the offer or the close, the more you look out of control. The more it shows them that you aren't ready to process this transaction. You aren't ready to take care of them. When you use brevity and you use clarity as you speak and then you shut up, it gives people the space to be able to think clearly and know that the pressure's on them and the awkwardness is on them, not on you. It's very important that we exercise this power as responsibly as possible, because you can also utilize a lot of these tools to manipulate. That's not what it's about. It's about utilizing the power for good. So go out there, do awesome. If you have any questions, bring them up in our next meeting, of course. But I'm really excited to see you leveraging these superpowers. By the way, this is a great time to mention that the Academy is coming along as well, the Academy of First Class Businesses. And that's going to be a phenomenal opportunity where we're going to be building on these concepts and teaching so much more about superpowers and sales powers. And it's going to give a really good environment for training purposes for people who could represent your brand or who do represent your brand. So I look forward to getting you access to the Academy of First Class Businesses as well. Let's get people trained up. Let's turn professionals into superstars, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye.